Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Indianaut podcast, where we interview some of India's next best analytical and creative minds who are not only revolutionizing their own field, but at the same time transforming India's entrepreneurial ecosystem one step at a time. Our guest for the day is the co founder and CEO at Nao Spirits, a craft spirits company based out of Goa, responsible for bringing the gin revolution to India with their greater than and Hapusa offerings. He has donned many kinds of hats in his career, from working at WNS and Deloitte to working at Moët, Hennessy and William Grant & Sons. We have with us Anand Virmani. Let us jump right into the conversation. Hi Anand, I hope you're all settled in.
Yeah, settle in, man.
Okay, great. So let's get started. So I wanted to let you know, Anand, before we start things off, that this episode is actually quite special for me. I consider myself a gin explorer, and it was actually Hapusa that got me into gin. So, but before we get into Now Spirits, that is your brainchild, I wanted to go back a little further. That, not many people know this, but you're also one of the co founders of Perch. That was, one of Delhi's first wine bars. And I believe the alcohol beverage space has always been quite close to your heart. So, why don't you share your journey up to Greater Than and Hapusa from your time at Babson and Perch?
Yeah, Perch was where the idea really came to life for us to start something in the gin space. Perch is, of course, I wish I was a co-founder, but yeah, I helped basically start that place up. Mainly through my expertise on wine, not even expertise, but mainly just being around wine and marketing, I guess. That qualified me enough to kind of help out Vaibhav, who was really the guy behind Perch. And when we did that, one of the first few ideas we came up with once Perch was underway and it had kicked off was, why not look at doing something with gin? So of course that was really the last piece or last leg before I fully dove into the gin world. But that's been predated by things like a stint at William Grant and Sons. So after Babson, I spent some time at William Grant and Sons, about 4 years there, basically learning the ropes of the alcohol business. Always wanted to get into the alcohol space, at least from my second year in college, where I was just like, I really wanted to get into finance, but I said finance is not my thing. I can do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. So I started looking for something else and immediately found wine, to be specific, but broadly, I guess the alcohol space. So spent 4 years at William Grant and Sons, which was great. Had a great kind of team there that I learned a lot under. I had, I guess, 3 bosses that I was reporting to, and each one had a very specific take on the business, which was great. Went away from there and actually decided to do my master's in wine business, so wine and spirits business at this Burgundy School of Business in France, and that was great. I actually at some point thought that I may not come back to India and that may just end up finding a job in the UK in the wine business or somewhere along those lines. But I guess the UK visa department just had their own plans for me. So
I think all of us in India are glad for that.
It's one of those things you can never plan, you can never prepare. But yeah, I ended up coming back and joining a company called Remy Cointreau. So getting back into the spirit space while also keeping the wine space kind of at the back of the mind, because they had a good portfolio of champagne. Piper Heidsieck was a champagne they had in their portfolio. And I said, okay, wow, this is great. It's my kind of love for spirit and wine kind of coming together, and that was good. But ended up being there for a year before this opportunity with Perch came about, and I said, would be interesting, right? Step out from behind the desk and be out there in the open, expose yourselves a little bit, and yeah, that's really what brought us to gin.
And speaking of gin, you are single-handedly responsible for kickstarting the gin revolution in India. I think the gin revolution in India. And gin is now loved by a vast majority of drinkers in India. But before this entire craft gin evolution came, Indians had a very narrow perception of gin. What factors do you think have helped in changing this?
I think firstly, single-handedly is obviously overplaying it quite a bit because there's been lots and lots of hands involved in this process. So yes, as a company, as a group of people, yeah, we've definitely helped mold the space. But I think we've also gotten very lucky because had it not been for us, it would have been someone else, right? So it's not like we had this eureka moment and created something out of thin air. It was more of we saw the wave coming, and we just happened to kind of grab the wave at the right time and ride the wave, and that's what we're doing now. So I don't think we can take credit for the wave itself, but because that would have happened regardless. But yeah, I think we've been in the right place at the right time, and been very fortunate to have gotten that opportunity to express ourselves in this way. Yeah, so with regards to kind of leading the way, it's been really fun. It's been really interesting because as you rightly said, the people who were drinking gin before in India, or even if they weren't, they just had no idea what gin could be, right? It was very single-mindedly. It was gin. Indian gin was blue ribbon, and imported gin was better, or that was the assumption at least, that of course it is better. And imported gins are your basic blue ribbon, your Beefeater, Gordon's, Hendrix, Bombay Sapphire, Tanker, right? These five were your big ones, where Bombay Sapphire was the biggest, right? Because it's just been around for the longest time, and it's got this aura about it and everything. And so Bombay Sapphire, a lot of people actually believe that Bombay Sapphire was the Indian craft gin already, because it's got Bombay in it. And they're like, oh yeah, but that's so we had a couple of initial things where we would say, oh yeah, we're the first Indian craft gin. They're like, no, you're not. Bombay Sapphire. The same. So yeah, so that was really the perception. The other perception was, of course, these were the brands. But the other perceptions that we dealt with when we first kicked off was things like people assuming that gin was a lady's drink, whatever that may be. Gin was an older person's drink, right? It was a drink that my grandfather would have or my grandmother would have, but not me. It was a daytime drink. It's not a drink that can be had in the evening. So there were a lot of these fairly strong perceptions that were there in the market. And while we had to acknowledge them, at the same time, I think we realized very quickly that was a subset of people that would never be our target audience. The people who had these perceptions were never going to be our target audience, and that was fine. We were happy to live with that. There's a whole new kind of brand of people that have come into the alcohol space, or have come into the alcohol consumption space, who get it, right? Who understand what gin is and what gin can be, and they have this expectation from what an Indian craft gin or an Indian craft spirit can and should be. So I think that really gave us a lot of impetus. Gave us a lot of hope. And they're the people that have really gotten behind us.
Right. I think another thing that helped with the perception was that people used to consider gin to be boring, right? I mean, I think nobody ever focused on the botanical aspect, or that you can fuse gins with a variety of items or botanicals. And I think people never whiskey has a strong taste profiles, tasting notes, but people never used to have that perception for gin. And I think that has changed along the way as well, and like not just whether it is not just Hapusa or greater than, but I think other Indian craft gins also, they also helped push that this entire new perception for gin, that gin has strong tasting profiles, and it is something that can be enjoyed thoroughly. Because this is a sort of a bias I've heard from a lot of people as well, which is quite surprising, really.
I think again, and here I'll actually credit the guys who come before us in the craft gin space globally. Um, so to do this properly, I think it's good to understand the history of where gin has been. So of course, during pre-prohibition and prohibition time, gin was your default spirit, right? It is what whiskey is to India now, was gin to the world, back then, where you'd walk in and most of your cocktails would be made with gin and everything, and all of that was there. It became even stronger during the prohibition time, because whiskeys pretty much went out the window. You had no place making proper whiskey, maturing it, because it was, where would you mature it? Where would you hide it for 2 years, 3 years, right? So
Right.
it was all design and everything at that time that was coming across. But gin kind of stayed its course, and it became even more popular, because it wasn't uh, as strong an aroma. I guess when you would have it, you can definitely smell whiskey on someone's breath. Gin maybe less so, right? Because it's got juniper and all these other botanicals, so it could just be a mouth freshener that you had. So you could make cocktails with it. You could walk into a speakeasy and kind of hold a fruity looking drink which is made with gin, and no one would know, right? None the wiser. So gin obviously kind of got its got its fangs into people at that time, but come the 50s, that started to wane, and it waned because of vodka coming in, right? So the
Okay.
US, of course, was kind of overcome with this wave of vodka led by Smirnoff.
Okay.
Um, they did a bang up job of advertising, promotion, kind of getting the right people out there, right talent behind it and everything. And they were the first ones to really set that blueprint that is followed now by spirit companies, right? Get celebrities behind them and all of that. So that really kind of caught everyone by surprise. Gin went out the window. Whiskey, had a bit of a hit, but not as significantly as gin. But definitely the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s became vodka nation, right? Even early 90s, vodka nation, right? Especially 80s and 90s, where you had all these fruity drinks, colorful, all kinds of colors, rainbow colors happening. It was that kind of that kind of bar vibe where you would have a syrup or a like sweet drinks were perfectly fine, colorful drinks were perfectly fine, umbrellas in the drinks, and all of that stuff, right? So vodka was perfect for that. What started to change actually was probably triggered by Bombay Sapphire in 1987, where they came out with this blue bottle, right? They realized that there's this massive club culture going on and everything. Nightclubs are big, and that's where all the consumption is, and people are drinking vodka. So they created a very light gin,
All right.
right? They created a bottle that would stand out. So in a nightclub, if you go even now, the blue bottle really stands out, right? Full credit to them. The blue bottle really stands out. And they were the first ones to actually put the botanicals on the label, on the bottle
Right.
itself.
Right. On the left and the right side of the panels. Right.
Yeah. So that actually was interesting because it was different, right? And they were the first ones to say, "Oh, this is what we've put in there." And suddenly you start questioning, "Oh, wait, there's natural ingredients in this spirit." I guess there was a slow burn that happened after that, and fast forward, I guess, to early 2000s. 2008, for example, Sip Smith was launched, and Sip Smith really kind of broke that ceiling and kicked off officially the craft gin revolution in the UK.
All right.
Right. That was followed maybe around the same time. Actually, 2008 would be around the same time that you had your cocktail bars come back. So now bartenders were not looking for vodka and fruity drinks and stuff like that. They were responding to consumer demand, where consumers are saying, "I don't want that much sugar. I don't want artificial flavors anymore. I don't want Monin in my drink or
Right.
my drink. I want real fresh things. What do you have?" So the bartenders obviously looked back into the history books, and the last time they were making fresh, you know, high quality drinks was back prohibition times. So they went back to the martinis, they went back to the old fashions and whiskey sours and those kind of things. Garnishes came back, and all these things happened all of a sudden. Um, and now, of course, most of your classic drinks did not have vodka in them. They had gin. So
Right.
they started looking at gin. And at about
Right.
the same time, guys like Sip Smith came about, Hendrix came about and said, here's my gin, here's my really good gin crafted and this, that, the other. So it kind of like went, the hipster movement kind of
Right.
went about at the same time. So it kind of like went, hand in hand, and it's just kind of, been the perfect storm that's worked out. So 2008, Sip Smith came about. By 2014, there were already about 100 distilleries, craft gin distilleries in the UK. The UK gin market was valued at about 750 million pounds at that point, which is not bad.
Not bad
That
at
takes
all.
into account all your Gordons, Tanquerays and all that as well. And by this time you're thinking, okay, 100 distilleries, okay, that's quite a bit. It's probably going to stabilize now, right? Everyone thought, okay, now it's going to be the gin plateau, or that's the top end, but it just kept growing. And from 2014 to 2018, by the time we got to 2018, the UK was a £3 billion market with 750 distilleries in there,
Not bad. Not bad
right?
at all.
And again, you think, okay, that's the plateau, that's peak, right? It's not going to go any higher than that. 2020, I believe it's hit £4 billion. Number of distilleries remain the same. In fact, there's been a little bit of consolidation, but £4 billion, it continues to grow, right?
That's not bad
Um,
at all.
so in that, of course, we've gotten plugged in, and 2017 is when we launched here in India, and more of the same, right? The consumers in India are displaying a lot of that same characteristic, where they say, listen, we don't want that much sugar. In fact, I'm surprised by the number of people that drink gin and water or gin and soda, or half soda, half tonic, that kind of a thing. I'm super surprised by it. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's really what's going on out there.
Thank you for that history lesson, by the way. That was quite interesting, and I think that it's been a very happy happy coincidence of the sorts between like what you mentioned in 2008, that between craft gin players coming into the picture, as well as people's demand moving more towards natural ingredients rather than having like sugared items in their cocktails. And I think, yeah, that makes sense that those same elements have now started coming in India as well, that and even in India, like you just said, that people want they would want gin and water, or gin and soda, or maybe gin and tonic, and low calorie tonics have also come into the picture. So a lot of interesting developments have happened in India as well. And just a follow-up question. So you spoke about the Bombay Sapphire, how that blue bottle is iconic. Is that has that inspired the Hapusa's, I think, the black bottle design, or that specific design, that it stands out whenever someone is looking at on that bar shelves?
I don't think we've gotten inspired by any one particular brand or bottle per se, but I think we've gotten inspired by the gin industry overall, right? The
Right.
fact that there is no one single template of what a gin bottle needs to look like, right? If you think whiskey bottle, you still think tall, lean, especially if you think Scotch whiskey single malt bottle, they'll have
Yeah,
that
yeah.
little.
It's a curve and tall bottles. Yeah.
So whiskey bottles are fairly, what a whiskey bottle is. Even you might know what a vodka bottle is, right? It has to be clear. You think an absolute bottle, or those kind of bottles, and it's fine. It's clear, this thing. With gin, it's all over the place, right? And that's been the beauty of it. So so between Aparajita, who's my partner in this, and myself, we had so much fun looking at different kinds of bottles before. I say fun, it was very nerve-wracking as well, right? Now you look back and you're like, oh, that was fun, that was great. But at one point we were just surrounded by bottles, and you have to pick one, right? And potentially then pick one, and then pick a color, right?
Right.
Constantly thinking that it's totally going to impact what's going to happen at the end. And now we look back at some of those finalized 5 options or 6 options. I'm like, wow, can you imagine had greater than look like that, or had Hapusa look like that? Would people have liked it? Would they not have liked it? So I think for Hapusa specifically, the method to the madness was that we wanted it to be a short, squat bottle, so that when and because we wanted it to be in your home bar. Now, in your home bar, typically you will open it up, and the shortest bottle will be in the front, and then you will have the tallest bottle stacked up behind.
Right, right.
Okay, we want it to be right in front, so shortest bottle there. Broad neck to kind of give it that feel of a decanter, like you would for a nice fine cognac. So broad neck, short bottle, punt at the bottom. So typically when we were looking for bottles, we were kind of looking. We had those kind of things in mind. And the color of the bottle is not black actually. If you look at it in the light, it's this dark purple.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at it in the light, you'll actually see that. The reason behind that purple is actually it's exactly the same kind of color that you would get in a ripe juniper berry.
Oh,
Juniper, of
okay.
course, you will know is the main ingredient that goes into making gin. And specifically for Hapusa, the name itself means juniper in Sanskrit, right? Because we use this very unique kind of juniper that comes from the Himalayas. So all of that kind of panned out together, and we ended up
Right.
deciding on this one particular bottle with that particular color and everything, and yeah,
There are a lot of complex layers to your entire brand design, but that makes sense for a brand such as yours. I mean, like you really have to think through these decisions before you actually implement them. And what you just told us about Hapusa and the branding and the packaging design, I think that's absolutely brilliant how you guys have gone about it.
it's not easy. And in retrospect, yes, it's easy for us to explain that, yeah, this has happened and that's happened. Why? Because of that. But it's one of those things that, there are so many different directions we could have gone down on.
Exactly. In contrary, I mean, you think you're making it sound easy, but when you explained all of that, it made me realize, how complex each and every single decision would have been, reaching that stage, from the name itself to, how the bottle will look like, to the color of the bottle, and everything. It all came together quite beautifully, and that's complex design thinking right there. That isn't
And
simple.
that's the thing. You need to have the right partners for that, right? You need to work with the right people for that. And I was lucky that Aparajita, I was able to convince her to come across and do this, because otherwise she was heading up design at Sesame Street, and before that she had worked at Penguin Publishing.
Okay.
As so for me to be able to pull her in and say, listen, really need your help with this. We would have arguments about what the name should be, and it was frustrating for me, because I was just with that mindset that, listen, it has to be done. Let's just put whatever out there. In my head, I had a deadline that needed to be met, which was just self-imposed, totally self-imposed.
Right.
But deadline that needs to be met. Let's get it out there. Let's get it out there. Let's get it out there. And I was just pushed back on, and which is great, right? That's the beauty of partnerships. I was just told, listen, nothing doing, not until we get this right, and I'll tell you when it's right. So,
I think she took the right call. I think it came out quite right. Yeah. Yeah. So, Anand, let's talk about the alcohol beverage space in India, right? So we've talked about the positives, that is the demand side, but let's talk at the supply side and the regulatory aspect, that. So just to share the context with everyone, the alcohol beverage space in India is extremely regulated, and I think this has led to a lot of supply chain issues for all craft gin players, as well as raising alcohol bev brands, with certain alcohol expressions staying for sale in a particular state only due to statewide regulations or national regulations. So what developments do you see taking place in this industry that can help progress this sector further?
honestly, that's a tough question, because we never have clarity on what's happening on the excise front. So can I really say that it's progressing one way or another? Not really, right? Because even if you look at it, the situation right now, we're in the state, we're in the month of November, and one of our largest markets like Delhi, there is still zero clarity on the excise policy for this financial year, for the ongoing financial year, right? This is 6-7 months after the financial year has started. We still have no clarity for this excess. So it's one of those can of worms that you really don't want to open up and really kind of start investigating. I think we try and do as well as we can. It is one of those things where we need to register in each specific state separately, have a separate label for each one, have a separate pricing, have a separate everything, right? Because the structure totally is totally different. So we need to have different distributors for each state. It's just like I said, it's a massive can of worms that just gets everywhere. Is there a way to do it better? Yes, lots and lots and lots of ways. Is that going to happen? No, right? Having grown up in this country and knowing the uh, knowing the things that come along with it, it's just not going to happen. And honestly, I look at it as part and parcel of doing business.
Right.
It is difficult to get started. For us as well, I think the first 2 years were really tough, where it took us a long time to understand each market. And for example, we we put in our application to start supplying in Maharashtra. That application did not get approved for the next 14 months, right?
Okay.
Delhi was another 12 months. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to accept. You have to take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to. So we made Goa our number one market. We made Bangalore our number two market, and that's really kind of how it panned out. Uh, Fast forward to now, we are able to move very quickly. Now that we have that experience, now we're able to move quickly. We've just gotten into states like Rajasthan, Assam, Meghalaya, Pondicherry. So those kind of things are now happening fairly quickly, because now you can kind of go to these excise and say, here's a proven brand. Here's a brand that's already selling in these 8 other states or 9 other states. So makes sense for us to come in here with this for you guys.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think I can, by the look of your face, I can understand that it's a pretty complex topic, and I don't think it can be solved over one question answer.
It's not going to get solved, and that's fine. I think if you start looking for a cure, we're not going to get anywhere. I think
Okay.
it's and I guess this is probably a reflection of our times that we live in. We can't look for a cure. We can't wait for a cure. We kind of have to get going, but we have to learn how to best live with it. And that's what we're doing.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Uh, Anand, I want to talk about something unfortunate that happened recently, and that is the unexpected demise of Greater Than's distiller and one of its visionaries, Jay Dhawan, right? And not only did the alcohol beverage industry, but the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry of India, each and every one of them almost came together to express their condolences on various channels to Jay's close people and the entire Now Spirits family. And it just shows how big an impact Jay had on everyone associated with Greater Than. So I just wanted to ask you, how are things with how are things going with Team Greater Than after this unexpected and unfortunate event?
See, it's a tough one. It's never going to be easy. No one can prepare you for something like that, right? We talk about profits and losses, and we talk about new product launches and those kind of things. No one ever thinks that something like that is going to happen. It was very unfortunate. We were absolutely devastated, and we still are. It's been a little over 2 months since that happened. Um, we're trying support his parents and friends and everything as much as we can. It's never going to be enough, right? What we do is never going to be enough, because what we do is what we're trying to do for ourselves as well. We're part of his own family. So um, it's yeah, that's a tough one. Um, how it's affected us. So firstly, he was a distiller. Um, when we started this entire business, he was one of the first people that we hired. And he and I got trained together at the distillery here with this lady who came across from the UK called Anne Brock. Um, so we ended up spending a lot of time invariably together. Every time I would fly down to Goa, we'd share an apartment, and I'd live at his place and everything. So it was one of those things that for the first 2.5 years, we were spending all our time together, and then the pandemic hit, and at the same time we got one other assistant, to kind of train under him. So it was a good time for him to kind of get that handover. So for the last 2 years, pretty much he was distilling himself, with Siddharth, who's that assistant, and everything that you were consuming was coming from him. Yes, using that recipe that we had created together. But yeah, so since that's happened, obviously, I've found my way back to the distillery, taken on that charge again, and slowly, I guess we're rebuilding. It's easier, I guess, to rebuild on the professional side. To get things started again at the distillery took maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but to rebuild on the emotional side is the challenge. And even till date, I don't think there's a day that goes by that we don't talk about him, think about him, discuss him or whatever. So it's a tough one. It's going to remain a tough one. We're lucky to have a fairly strong support system that we've built internally, that we're able to kind of lean on each other and say, okay, need your help here, need your help here, and do that. But yeah, one of those things that I hope it never happens to anyone else. I definitely hope it doesn't happen to us. Yeah, he's an absolutely loved guy even now, and will be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anand, I want to talk about the future of Now Spirits now, right? You're releasing a brand new limited edition, coffee infused gin in partnership with Sleepy Owl called No Sleep Gin, in the honor of Jay. And by the way, I'm extremely excited about that, and I expect to receive that as my Diwali gift from you this month. But that is short term. What is Now Spirit's long term vision and plan? What exciting things can we expect from you in 2022 and beyond?
So I think for us, the only thing we can say is that the future is bright. There's a lot going on. We're always experimenting, and that's something that I was doing even while Jay was there, where he would hold on to the distilling part day in, day out, and I was more and more involved with them on the R&D piece, where we constantly, like, and R&D makes it sound very scientific. I think the better way of putting it was we were mucking about, right? And in that mucking about, we came up with this coffee gin, which actually was the brainchild of both actually Jay and Sid. And it's the three of us really who know, or now I guess just me and Sid, that know what's going on with the distillery. So between us, we were kind of holding down that fort. So now as well, we're just running some experiments. Our friends and family get the brunt of it. Every once in a while, we hit on something everyone likes, and we're like, okay, maybe we can store this one away, and maybe we come out with a limited edition or something there. But yeah, I think there's a lot to do. There's a lot of low hanging fruit there as well, that would be obvious choices if you were to go in for limited editions and stuff. But I think we're constantly going to build on our on the base that we've created and try and strengthen that. It's only last year that we started entering into all these award competitions and stuff. So this year already, for example, Hapusa has received a gold at the top awards in the world. And Nao Spirits got nominated as one of the top 5 international gin producers in the world.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Nuts, right? For us, for that kind of acknowledgement to come in from the IWSE, which is kind of seen as the pinnacle
Absolutely.
of the industry, is insane. So yeah, I think something somewhere that we're doing is working out. I still can't pinpoint what that is, but one of the many things that we're doing is working, or two of the many things that we're doing is working. So we're just going to keep at it. We're going to keep plugging away, and and hopefully it's exciting. So yeah, the No Sleep gin is a very exciting bit for us. I'm sure we will have more limited editions that come out that follow No Sleep. But yeah, we'll see.
Excited about the future of spirits coming out of your organization. And Anand, I actually have two last questions from you, right? So actually, the first one is it's something that actually I would want to know is that what is your favorite gin outside of Greater Than and Hapusa?
For us here, it's and I think this is shared between Aparajita and I. There's this gin called Kiro, Kyro.
That's based out of Finland, right? I think
it's sort of they are
yes.
great, and it's such a good gin. Just one of the cleanest kind of gins for gin and tonics.
Right.
And they love garnishing, I think, with rosemary and cranberries or something like that. Of course, we don't get cranberries, so I don't never even bother. But rosemary garnish in that is fantastic.
Okay, all right. And my last question for you is actually, what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs who wish to, enter the alcohol beverage space in India?
Don't do it. No, do it. I mean, I'm joking, right? It's one of those things that it is tough, and I think we just have to grow a thicker skin. But I think more and more people that come in, I think we actually have a stronger chance of a louder voice and a louder representation, or a better representation, let me say. So I think if you are looking at entering the alcohol space, two things. One, do it right. Don't take the shortcuts. Lots of shortcuts presented themselves to us along the journey, and we made sure that we didn't take any of them, I think. Which is why we ended up having to spend so much time looking for the right bottle, look for the right pot still, look for the right manufacturing partner and everything, and all of that happened, and actually jumped into distilling it ourselves as opposed to getting it done by someone else. So definitely do it the right way. But secondly, also, when you're doing it the right way, you have to have that thicker skin about you, where you kind of have to just keep going no matter what. It's not like starting an agarbatti business, right, where you will make agarbattis out of wherever you're making and just sell anywhere in India. It is very regulated. It is very demotivating almost, when you get into it, and there's just like you're surrounded by red tape. But I think you have to keep going and keep getting past all of that, and as long as you're doing it right, you're gonna keep it exciting for yourself and for your consumers.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Anand, for joining us today. We wish you and Nao Spirits the best of luck for the future.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much for having us. This was great. This is a lot of fun, and wish you and your podcast
Thank you.
future
Thank
as well,
you.
man.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this episode. The Indianaut podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook to receive all updates on the upcoming episodes. We'll see you in the next one.